I'm Jen. I'm a psychotherapist, mom, and human who has lived through the messiness of life and learned a few things along the way. I teach this stuff. So I decided to create a podcast called The Authenticity Mindset, where we can talk about the truth, take action, and get inspired. Are you ready to join the community? Let's go. Hello and welcome to episode 2. Very exciting. Today we're going to talk about the one mindset shift that I changed in my life that really impacted everything. And my hope is to be able to guide those who are listening to be able to consider for them what is the one shift that maybe they could take on in their life that might make the biggest impact of all. Remember, the only reason why we're doing this is to be able to affect a positive change in a larger community. We want to work together to be able to understand that if we're more empowered and we're feeling like we can create what's possible in our life, then we pass that on to the next person and the next person. And all of that together can create some positive momentum, which we need in the world, right? Okay, so let's get right into it. When we think about a mindset shift and something that is a learned behavior, right? And by behavior, I mean not actions in the world, I mean belief systems in our mind. When we think about wanting to shift a belief system, what comes to mind for you when I even say that? Like a shift a belief system. But Jen, I believe what I believe. Like truth is truth, black is black, white is white. How can I change something that I already believe? Well, a lot of what we believe was put into us by society, by culture, by our upbringing, by our friends, our relationships. It's not necessarily what we actually believe and what we think is best for us. So when we're talking about even shifting, right, into a different state of mind or a different belief system, I really want you to understand this concept that we have to first be aware that what we're holding on to and what we're thinking may not even be ours to begin with, right? I know it's like a wild concept. I talk about this with patients in my practice all the time. It's like if I'm saying, the wall is painted blue, and they're saying, no, it's not, it's painted green. How do we all of a sudden unsee a color if it was always perceived to be one way, right? I'm not going to all of a sudden convince you that the wall is now blue if in your eyes the wall is green. So I can understand that there are challenges to this right off the get-go. So I just want to ease the template of how we start talking about our thoughts and our beliefs and shifting our mindset. And I want to start with just giving you an honest example from myself and my life and how it is that I even got here to be talking to you today. So when I was growing up, I grew up in normal suburban area in Northern California. Pretty typical childhood in many ways. A little bit atypical in other ways. But as like most children, I was, brought up to believe certain things to be true about the world, had certain habits and cultural beliefs based off of my family's perceptions that influenced what is right, what is wrong, and how we operate in our life. As I got older, I really started to notice, and again, you might find this to be something similar in your life, that a lot of those belief systems that aren't necessarily right nor wrong, certainly from the family that I came from, but just weren't working for me in trying to get the outcome that I wanted in life. So I wanted to have stability and success. And I was ambitious and I had different ideas about, how I wanted to feel about myself and how I interacted with others. And I really had this vision for my personhood and my character that I couldn't let go of wanting to achieve. And so I guess that's one thing to sort of take note of in terms of who I am. I am passionate to a fault about pursuing a goal. That can be really helpful. And if you're listening and joining in on the community, I hope that's helpful. Like, take all of my passion and soak me up like a sponge because I'll give it. But when it came to my personal life, I kept running up against this roadblock as to I had this goal and vision for my life, and it wasn't necessarily working, and I couldn't figure out why that was until I was able to, with education and with guidance and mentorship and lots of reading and lots of studying and lots of exposing myself to multiple different ways of thoughts. And this could be through a spiritual lens, through a self-help lens, motivational speaker, different work opportunities I had, educational opportunities I had, peers that I was interacting with, right? All of those different influences can all serve a purpose for us. So there's not one way to be able to expand and shift your view of the world. Any of them are great. It's really just about being willing to be open-minded to where the knowledge can come from. So I realized that I was so closed off to what I was believing to be true. I perceived my life as being factual and right and true based on the upbringing I had and my view of the world. And I thought that things were supposed to go a certain way. And as we all learn, it does not go that way. And so once I hit some of those roadblocks, I didn't quite know how to cope and I didn't know how to adjust and pivot my thinking. So I'm just going to skip to the learning piece of it because the how I got to it is probably something that we're going to explore and I'll teach more about over time in this podcast. But if we were to jump ahead to where I got to, it's truly about the art of giving myself permission to live in the truth and in the reality that I could have what I desired. So I'm going to say that again. I gave myself permission to believe in the truth and reality that I could live the life I desired. So why is this relevant? Why is this a big, massive shift? Well, of course, I mean, we're supposed to be happy, Jen. Like that's how we're all on earth to be happy, right? But when was the last time in your life that you actually sat down and thought, no, things are going to work out. Things are going in my favor. This is going to happen. This is possible. So many of us get bogged down by different perceptions and opinions and judgments and mindset programming from other influences, right? If you don't, I'll use a stupid example because I am not the biggest fan of social media, but I have learned to accept that social media is not going anywhere and is a means to a necessary outcome in our life. And so I've decided, right? I've decided what is possible. I've decided to give myself permission to believe that I can use social media and its platform and its accessibility to larger communities. That's my main goal, right? To be able to influence for good. So, if we were to use this concept of social media, right? Some people might say, well, you have to hit the certain algorithm to allow for, your content to reach certain amounts of people. Okay. So that's a belief system. That is an idea out there about social media. P.S. I am like no social media expert and I don't even really know what I'm talking about when it comes to this specific example, but follow along. You'll understand what I'm saying. So if you follow the rules of social media, then you'll get the outcome that you want. Well, I would suppose that in some circles, this is true, that in some theories and some data collection marketing experts somewhere, they have found that if you do X, it equals Y and it's effective. But what if doing that particular process and doing that structure doesn't feel right to you or feel effective to you? Do you just do it anyway because that's what people tell you have to do? Do you pause and question and readjust? Do you seek outside guidance? Like, how do you figure out the social media thing if your first instinct about how it's supposed to go doesn't feel right? What do you do? This is the example I want you to then lift and carry over and put into your actual life. What if your parents, your teachers, your boss, your colleagues, your neighbors have all designed for you the algorithm as to how life is supposed to go. And we have reinforced that you go to high school, you get good grades, you go to the good college, you maybe take on some debt. It's worth it. Don't worry, you'll make up for it when you graduate. Or then you buy the house and you get the job and you go into finance and you invest here, start early and, do the things that everyone says you're supposed to do. If that doesn't feel like it's a prescription for success for you, are you giving yourself permission to leave it, to abandon it, to pivot to something that does feel right? Are you giving yourself permission to abandon the prescribed way? So, yeah, we don't have to talk about social media anymore because I don't even understand it anyway, but I hope that you can understand the comparison, right? That like there is this way that people talk about that you're supposed to do it. And if you did it another way, can you still be successful? My guess is there's a lot of fears that come up in that of like, oh no, but like my way is not proven and it's not tested and people say that it's not going to work. So what if I do it? Then if I fail? And what if, they're all going to tell me they told me so that Jen, don't you know you're supposed to do the algorithm? Blah, 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 blah. In a very specific structure, there's a lot to weigh and a lot to doubt and question and sort of examine the evidence as to whether it's going to work, whether it's not going to work, whether you take a piece of it or not. In life, we don't have a comparison template as to what's going to work in life. Like every day that goes by, it's us taking a risk and diving in, right? So the stakes feel really high when it comes to giving ourselves permission to pivot away from the prescribed path. So this is where coming to what is true and what is reality based and what is your belief system is so important. And this is something that I learned a long time ago when I was really transforming my personhood in life. And, there are people who know me from various stages in my life. And I'm sure the ones who knew me when I was younger listen to me now and think, wow, that's a different person. And it's true. I am a different person. I have learned to believe and give myself permission to align with what is true for me and what feels authentic to what's possible in life in a way that I am dogged on. And I am so all in on this permission structure that I am allowed to have the happiness, the life, the success, the family, the experience with motherhood, the experience in my business, in my practice as a therapist, in my relationship with my husband. I give myself full permission to have that experience that I want. And so, in order to do that, I have to recognize that there are influences and structures of thought that ring in my head, right? That say, well, 50% of marriages don't work. Or, well, you can't really have it all, right? You can't be a mother with three kids and have a business and start another business and do it all because there's not enough hours of the day. Like a million different ways that our brains can be convinced that it won't work. But if I give myself permission to believe that it will, it changes the entire flow and structure of the energy that I'm putting forth. And I live my life based on this principle. I believe that I have permission to live in happiness and success. I believe that I have permission to have joy and peace of mind and fun and passion and fulfillment in what I do for work and in compassion and figuring it out safety in my parenting. And I say that with trepidation because the parenting one is, whew, it is such a high stakes subject in terms of who I want to be as a mother. And the worries that I notice come up in my head sometimes about whether I'm doing it good enough and right, which I know that a lot of you guys share. Um, that's a tough one to just say, I give myself permission to believe that I'm doing okay, right? Because I don't want to mess them up. And I want them to know that I'm always doing my best. But so even then, right, I have to notice that there are doubts that come in how I parent and how I am a mom and in how I am a partner and a wife and a family member and a contributor to society, right? That, somewhere along the way, people may have questioned me or doubted me or, had opinions about me and my ambitions and my attitude and my not really giving so much of a shit about what people think about me. People are going to have opinions when you have an opinion. But whose life is this? It's yours. It's your happiness on the line. And so that to me is worth more than anything. So giving yourself permission to have a belief that you can have the happiness and joy that you deserve, that you can have the career, that you can have the pursuit of freedom in your life. Permission in your brain is step one. So, the way that we combat that and the way that we understand this idea of permission is we also have to have the awareness that a lot of people don't want us to have that permission. Not because they're bad or evil people or we're against each other. It's just the nature of how our competitive society is set up, right? People are opinionated. Oh no, you have to do this social media algorithm this way. They don't really want to see someone be successful another way. But guess what? All of the most interesting, fascinating people in the world who have found success did it another way. It was not just the same permissive structure that created the next mind-blowing, exciting entrepreneur, business person, innovative idea, right? It was the person who did it the other way, who found that authentic path that was right for them. They had to start with first being willing to say, I don't have to follow the structure of what everyone else says. I don't have to do it this way just because it's going to make me well liked, or it's going to mean that people don't talk shit about me, or it's going to mean that, you know, they agree with me, or they like me, or they, you know, are validating my decisions in existence because I'm subscribing to doing it the way that they said I should do it. No, it means that you independently own your permissive structure where you say, I'm all in on having the life that I deserve. I'm all in no matter what. No matter if I'm not liked anymore, no matter if people don't know the truth of what has really happened, no matter if people disagree with me, if people think things about me. Like you have to decide with this mindset shift that the permission that you give yourself to live the life that you truly desire, to pursue the goals that you truly desire, is worth going against the grain. And that's how I lived my life. I have been a grain going againster trend setter when it was so unpopular, when people looked at me like I was insane, when I lost friends, when I lost relationships, when I took risks, when I just doubled down on believing that what I was trying to achieve was worth people disagreeing with me. I was willing to give myself permission to believe that the truth and reality of what I desired was possible. And that was it. Once I started truly leaning into that belief system, everything changed because I no longer responded to the programmed limitations of my childhood and how I was taught to, see the world and the structures to follow of how adulting could be successful. Once I was willing to walk away from some of those programmed beliefs, the whole world opened up in terms of what was possible. And just to be fair, I'm not saying that any of those original beliefs are wrong. I adopt a lot of them still, right? Like it was really important for my husband and I for us to buy a home and to have the stability and structure in raising our kids of home ownership. A lot of people don't think that way anymore. But for me, I was raised with that belief. I carried on that belief and I agreed with it. That one was important to me. Other beliefs about changing careers and going back to graduate school when I was a little bit older than some other people, of taking some risks in how I, operate as a clinician and how I run my private practice. Several, people in my profession and colleagues, I think admire a lot of what I do and I think disagree with what I do. And that's okay because as long as we're following the guidelines and truths of who we are and what our passion is leading us to do, it's okay to be different. It's okay to be able to say, I give myself permission to follow this path. I know that I'm kind, good, ethical, truthful, aligned with what matters in terms of the values that I'm promoting in the world for myself, for others. And as long as I'm doing that, then it's okay to be able to go against what other people are saying. So I think this is a really important message and why I'm highlighting it as the first lesson in this series that this podcast will become in terms of just talking to everyone about how to live in a more authentic space and to start making some changes in their thinking that can, create positive shifts. Um, the reason why this is so important is because if we're not aware of where we're stuck and where we're not giving ourselves permission, then we're not going to be able to change it. So we have to really start right at the source, is that if you're not giving yourself permission to live in this truth of what's possible, to live in the reality that you, me, everyone else deserves to have a life that they desire, to achieve the goals that they're looking for, that you can live that way, then you're gonna keep getting stuck in trying to look at other people telling you and advising you as to what's right. And what I know for sure is that no one else can tell me what is right for my happiness and life. I can be advised, I soak up knowledge, I seek it, I read about it, I listen to it, I crave all kinds of different education, influence, and information I could find. But at the end of the day, I have to decide, am I giving myself permission to go get it? Am I giving myself permission to change my whole world in order to achieve that happiness? And because I said yes to those questions, here I am. So that's it. Give yourself permission to go after what you want, to get what you desire. I hope you join us in the community. You can check out theauthenticitymindset.com for more information. There is a program there where I go into detail about all of these different techniques and strategies that I teach around mindset shifting and thought patterns and deprogramming our belief systems. There is a community there that is growing by the day, where that's our big hope and goal, is to create some momentum in the world where we're all in this together, trying to find our truth and trying to take more action and create some positive waves. So I will see you next time. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you found something that feels right for you. Remember, while I am a psychotherapist, I am not your psychotherapist. So if you're looking for therapy, make sure you find a licensed mental health provider in your area. And I guess like and subscribe, because that's what they do these days. We want more people involved, right? Go get it. See you next time.